from coast to coast. We've got two hosts. Welcome to another episode of the Fivecast Podcast. We're here to break down and examine intricately prepared top 5 lists for your enjoyment from the Sentinel Tower in parts unknown. I'm your host, Tyler. And a little guy over there at Second Floor Studios in Hollywood, it's Ben Pearson. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, what's going on, Tyler? How are you?
I don't mean to mock your height or anything.
Right.
I do stand
I'm about the same height as you, I think.
I was about to say, I stand a few feet taller than you, but peek behind the curtain, we're about the same size, yeah. But what do you think it's life like? What do you think life is like for, I don't know, like, let's say we're tall, we're like of the world of men. What do you think it's like to be, let's say, a dwarf?
Man,
in the medieval mythological sense.
I feel like you're almost bound by law to carry an axe if you're a dwarf, right?
Perhaps grow a mustache or a beard?
Oh, yeah, that's a given. I feel like every beardless dwarf would either be, cast into the fires from whence they came or just abandoned by the tribe or whatever. I feel like that's a rite of passage.
Yeah. Well, to
fictional medieval dwarf.
And it makes sense back into the fires from which they were welded because in most literature, especially Tolkien's Legendarium, the dwarves are they're smithies. They like to produce grand objects, perhaps magical objects of gold and steel and perhaps gemstones.
Yep.
And of course, that one movie came out, The Huntsman, which I think had 7 dwarves. Perhaps it's Snow White related.
Oh, who knows?
Well, it was last weekend. I don't know if it did too well. We'll have to check the numbers over there at geektyrant.com. But yeah, I figured dwarves, Ben. Do you have a list by chance? And this could include anything. This doesn't have to be Tolkien dwarves. This doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragon dwarves. This does not have to be perhaps human dwarves in the real world. Although I don't think that we should call them dwarves. I think it's little person is the acceptable phrase.
Right. Yeah.
But they might have the aforementioned dwarfism, which is a medical condition. So you can't PC that.
Right. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I'm
a doctor.
Have a list. I do have a list, Tyler.
So do I. You want to start? Number 5.
Yeah, let's do it. So my number 5. I'm starting not with just a dwarf, Tyler, but a.
By the way, Ben is sick.
I am a little.
He
sick.
has dwarfism.
No, that's not a sickness.
Oh, sorry.
Just a condition.
Sorry.
I'm not starting with a dwarf. I'm starting with a dwarf deity.
Ooh,
so I'm taking it up a notch already with the number 5 spot. The reason it's my number 5 is because I'm not super familiar with it. It's a dwarf from the Dungeons and Dragons universe,
okay.
I think.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so the dwarf's name is, or the dwarf deity's name is Dugmarin Brightmantle, which gotta love that Brightmantle last name. Pretty awesome.
I am called Brightmantle.
So he is an elderly dwarf, sparkling blue eyes, Tyler. Oof. He's slightly hunched over, wears a bright blue cloak that is his namesake, the bright mantle, if you will. My favorite aspect of him, and I know next to nothing about this character. Let me just go ahead and throw that out there again.
He's a dwarf deity. We don't know much about the god that we have of our world.
Yeah. My favorite aspect of him, of Mr. Brightmantle, is that he irritates his father by wandering away from his projects before he completes them or before he finds a use for the knowledge he has collected. So that I thought was very entertaining.
Brightmantle, get back here and finish your work.
He apparently has dominion over chaos, good, and knowledge, and is worshipped by dwarves and some gnomes who frequent scholarly things, engineers, inventors, people of that sort. So, there you go. Dugmarin Brightmantle, or Dugmarin. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is.
I think it might be Dugmarin. That sounds
cool.
That sounds more Dungeons and Dragon-y.
Yeah.
Now, did you have to roll a d20 to get that guy at your number 5 spot?
D19.
Oh, a D19.
I actually don't know.
A 19-sided die?
I don't know.
Ben,
I've never played that game, so I'm not sure.
Me neither. I just know it's got a 20-sided die, but it's good to know that you've invented a 19-sided die in case you ever want to take just one piece of chance out of the D20. My number 5, Ben, is actually a set of 4 dwarves.
Oh, cool.
From old Norwegian mythology. It's actually the 4 dwarves that hold up the sky, so I'm instantly attracted to that. I'm a big fan of mythology, as are you. And 4 dwarves, which completely obliterate the idea of short dwarves, like shortness being a thing with dwarves. In my research, which didn't take long because this is the podcast,
Yes.
apparently the shortness of a dwarf was actually the result of a mistranslation, or like the transitioning of Norwegian into like not English but perhaps Germanic, which then maybe into Anglican. And it somehow got to the name of short or not high. And so originally, I guess, in the Norse mythology, dwarves were just huge beings from a different level of existence, like Amberhide or whatever, not Thor's world, but a different world.
Right. Jotunheim.
Yeah, something like that. And so there's Norari, Suari, Austri, and Vestri. Those are the 4 dwarves that hold up the sky, or north, south, east, and west. So instantly attracted to these guys. They're probably much like Brightmantle, gods of the world.
Yeah.
It also reminded me of the Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, where you have to summon the giants that push the moon back into the sky, the 4 giants from the different directions, north, south, east, and west. And so I was instantly like, oh, those guys kind of look like dwarves, I guess, if you want to think of them as mythological beings. So boom, number 5, a Legend of Zelda reference.
Very cool.
I don't know if they wear bright blue robes of any sort. Perhaps they're naked. But of course, send your fan fiction and fan art to 5castpodcast@gmail.com.
I really hope we get some fan art of that.
Some naked dwarves holding up the sky. Ben, moving on with our top 5 dwarves. In case you just joined us, Ben, number 4.
My number 4 is Gimli from The Lord of the Rings. A pretty
call.
standard choice, but I felt like I owed it to him. Very enjoyable character.
It to him.
Ooh, I see what's going on. Excuse me. So Gimli, one of my favorite things about Gimli, of course, his savage wit, his fantastic one-liners. No, he is a
Not the beard.
Yeah, he is a piece of fiery fury on the battlefield. This dude just lets people have it left and right with that aforementioned axe I mentioned.
Battle axe that bitch.
So I like this little breakdown of Amir that says that he was born in the year 2879 of the Third Age, son of Gloin, who, if my mythology is correct, was the son of Groin, which I always thought was Gloin, son of Groin. Is aren't we all sons of Groin, Tyler?
Yeah, that's a good play on words. I like that.
Oh man, that's a great bit.
Are you sure it's not glowing?
It might be, and that might
Gloin.
actually like throw my thing.
Oh, the names that the children dwarves called him on the playground.
Yes.
Hey guys, suck my gloin.
Yeah, I think it is glowing. Anyway, the Gimli.
To go back to your original joke. Now we got growing.
Right.
A groin is a growing. Am I right?
I think that doesn't even work. Oh, I see what you're doing.
Here we
go.
You're
adding another level to it. That is brilliant. Yeah. Oh man, wordplay. So, Gimli, at age 62, really wanted to come with Thorin Oakenshield on the quest to claim Erebor, the Lonely Mountain. But at age 62, he was deemed too young, sadly. So he had to just sit around and wait for his own adventure to roll around whenever Tolkien felt like doing it. So
it's too old to go on. He's too young to begin the trading.
Yep. So, everybody knows who Gimli is. You've all seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I don't need to give any more information about this.
The Lord of the Rings movies here on the Vivecast.
And we've spent so much time, actually, in that world, if I remember right. I think we were physically transported there.
Yeah, for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
It was Earth time.
A crazy experience.
It may have been like 62 years in Middle Earth time. Who knows?
Yeah, and we would have been too young for anything at that age, that tender age of 62. So Gimli, got to give him a shout out. What do you think about that?
I was going to put him, and I really love Gimli. I love John Rhys Davies as Gimli. But I'd put him on my list if there weren't if I didn't have more knowledge of the dwarven world of Tolkien.
Yeah.
So I'm going to include some of my other favorite dwarves on my list.
Fair enough.
A little later on. My number 4 actually is not a Tolkien dwarf. It's not even a mythological dwarf. It's a Disney dwarf. out of the 7 dwarves from Disney's fantastic first animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I got to go with not Dopey, who's probably everybody's favorite, not Grumpy for all those assholes' favorites, because it's like I'm grumpy until I get my coffee. Am I right? Like not that. I'm going with the highly educated Doc. Ben Doc is my favorite of the 7. He's got his wits about him. He's got his little spectacles on, kind of like a Benny Frank. He keeps that house together, man. He keeps that cottage together. He probably knows how diamonds are formed. He probably knows exactly where to dig. He probably just runs the gambit with these dwarves. Like everyone else is just a lazy ass bastard. Sleepy, sneezy, like give it up, stop complaining, go to school, get your master's, get your doctorate, become Doc. Do you think Doc got the first doctorate and then that's why his name's Doc?
I think maybe you're onto something there. He's probably the one who bestows all future doctorates on anybody else. He's like the ultimate professor.
And it's interesting, too, that the 7 dwarves of Grimm's fairy tales. Is Snow White a Grimm one, or is that Hans Christian Andersen? I think Cinderella's Hans Christian Andersen.
I'll have to check that out. Go ahead.
Dave, can you look that up for us, buddy? But then it's also the 7 dwarf lords that get the rings in Tolkien's Legendarium. So in the Silmarillion, I want to say, the gods create the first 7 dwarves, but they lay dormant. They don't awaken yet because I don't even think the elves had been created yet. So the god that created the dwarves was like, all right, I'll hold off on this for a little bit. And then the elves came around. The elves were the first race. And then I think eventually the god was like, one of the gods said, all right, the dwarves can wake up now.
Nice.
And that's what started the dwarf race. But yeah,
it looks like Snow White was a Brothers Grimm. Yeah,
there we go.
1812 German.
1812?
Yep.
Jeez, do you remember that war?
It was a 100 Years' War. Tyler.
It was a big war. No, 1812 was a war.
Yeah, no, I know.
There's a 100 Years' War in there somewhere, I think.
I never know. Well, like I see it on Jeopardy pop up all the time, and I just straight up don't remember that one from history classes. I'm like, I have no idea which 100 years you're
this
talking about.
War was in the year 1812. 100 Years' War. Incorrect.
That actually sounds like a celebrity Jeopardy answer.
But yeah, Doc out of the 7, he's my favorite. He's going to hi-ho right to your heart, Five Cats listeners, and so check out that lovable classic, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs.
You better not give him some cocaine and a brothel.
Yeah. And
you know what's going to happen.
What's that?
Hi-ho, hi-ho.
I was going to say something about Disney's anti-Semitism, but yours is much better to end my number 4 on. Ben, number 3.
All right, my number 3 is Tyrion Lannister, not Peter Dinklage, the actor who portrays him on the HBO series Game of Thrones, but Tyrion Lannister, the character. Correct. I have recently, Tyler, gone through and read the entirety of the published works of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, and Tyrion is, I believe science has proven this. Somebody actually did the math on this, and he has more point of view chapters than any other character in the series.
Oh wow.
So he's sort of the official main character, if you will, of
it's not the Hound
of A Song of Ice and Fire. No, it is not the Hound. Man, Tyrion's just great. If you watch Game of Thrones, you know all about this. He is I would say just about as awesome in the books as he is in the show. And that's one of the, I feel like with adaptations, with any adaptation really, you have to sort of sacrifice some stuff in order to transport it over to a different medium. Mm-hmm. And the character of Tyrion is one of those cases, one of the few cases where they really didn't change him too much. Most of the major things that happen to him in the books have happened to him excuse me, in the show, with the exception of some of the later stuff that still might end up happening to him later on this season. And then there was one storyline that was sort of excised entirely when he was a slave, basically. But that was just like bundled into the whole Ser Jorah team up.
When he went across the Dothraki Sea, was he a slave? Or was he still in Westeros?
It was when he went over to Pentos and then became a slave for this huge fat guy over there. It was really crazy. So anyway, Tyler, you watch Game of Thrones. What do you think about?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Tyrion Lannister. He's I think he was on my top 5 Game of Thrones characters back in episode in the 20s somewhere.
Yeah, man. I forgot all about that one. That's how long we've been doing this.
That's a 5 Cast of Kings, I believe, was the name of that episode. Type. So check that out. Yeah, I mean, other than the Hound, he's probably in my top 5. And he's just fantastic. I love his wit.
He's one of those guys that does not have the I was talking about like medieval dwarves almost by law being required to wield a giant axe. Tyrion is not that guy. He's the guy who is much more comfortable using his intelligence to get him out of sticky situations, and his wealth and his family money. He can pay people off with the best of them. Yep. And then even when that is stripped of him later on, he's still scrappy enough and smart enough to be able to adapt. He's got great adaptability to pretty much any situation. He's a terrific managerial sort of figure. He knows how to he knows how to delegate, and man, he's great. And plus, how great is it just seeing him slap Joffrey over and over again?
Yeah, he is the hand of the king now, so get that hand right on that face.
Yep.
Nice. I knew that was going to be coming. Game of Thrones, check it out. HBO, sponsor the 5Cast. My number 3 is one of the 13 dwarves that go and get little Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit, Ben. And, of course, in the Hobbit trilogy by Peter Jackson. A pretty accurate adaptation, just like you said with Peter Dinklage and Tyrion Lannister. I mean, I think they've perfectly translated The Hobbit onto film.
You are out of your mind, sir.
Nori, Ben. Nori. Now,
I don't remember this one.
He's a dwarf of Thorin and company. He embarked on the quest of Erebor in the year 2941 of the Third Age, which resulted in the death of Smaug the dragon and reestablished the dwarf kingdom under the mountain. Nori settled in Erebor for the rest of his life and lived happily ever after till the end of his days. I also drew him for Tolkien Month 2015. Boom, boom! TolkienMonth.tumblr.com. And he's got this really sweet black beard, and he's standing right there in front of the Lonely Mountain, just like a boss. And he was one of the dwarves that came up in my randomization of what I was going to draw for Tolkien Month 2015. And so Nori popped up, and I was like, hey, I really like the way he looks, because I came up with the way he looked. And so I gave the number 3 slot to Nori.
So what differentiates this guy from the other remaining dwarves that were in that company?
Don't know. Not sure.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
I'd have to go and read The Hobbit again, but I'm sure he was just... I think he was one of just the... In the Hobbit prime, I think he was just the another guy that had his name rhyme with one of the other guys.
Yeah, right.
And in the movie, I'm not really sure who Nori was. It's hard to keep track of all those guys. I do have to say, being a proponent of dwarves now after this episode, those dwarves in the Hobbit movies should have had better beards. I know not all of them had beards. Some of them did, some of them didn't. The ones that really had the beard, like the really, really old guy that used the bone for his or the horn for his ear, like that's straight dwarf. Like that's what a dwarf should look like. And then the dwarf army that comes at the very end, like that guy on the what were they riding, like warthogs or something?
I think so.
I can't remember. That was a dwarf, but like Thorin, it didn't look like a dwarf. He just looked like a guy who, for some reason, was way shorter than he should have been. Like, just biologically absurd.
All right. I'm into that.
Yeah, I mean, Warhammer, if you have any thoughts on Nori, let us know. Of course, Warhammer is a fan of the show, friend of the show.
Yep.
Good friend of confidant.
Long-time listener.
Never caller. Ben, number 2.
All right, my number 2, perhaps my favorite dwarf name on this list, Mulch Diggums, Tyler.
Good old Mulchy.
Yes, a dwarf from the Artemis Fowl series, which I don't know what that is. I guess it's an Irish book series.
Here we go.
Written by I thought it said a fictional author named Owen Colfer. Like, I was thinking what is that series with a series of unfortunate events? Like Lemony Snicket is a fictional author because like some real guy writes as him. I thought it was like that kind of thing, but no. Oin Colfer is the real author who has created Mulch Diggums. This guy, a kleptomaniac dwarf, Tyler. He steals things almost willy-nilly, like to the
Dwarves
point
are
where
mischievous.
he's addicted to it, basically. He is an expert burglar, infamous for his powerful and deadly flatulence, of course.
Classic
including,
dwarf.
Yes, including varieties of that, nicknamed the Torpedo and the Cyclone. You can only imagine what those would be like. He can tunnel underground using his unhinged jaws at incredibly high speeds. He has his own tools to placate his kleptomaniac desires. His beard hair acts as antenna, and he can pick up vibrations through walls and underground. Also, when they're pulled, they stiffen and form to work as keys and other useful items. So you could basically just, yank out a chunk of goatee, turn that into a key, and break into a place.
Wow.
When his spit dries, it becomes rock solid and glows in the dark. I don't know what sort of power that, what sort of use you would need for something like that. I guess if it's dark in wherever you're trying to break in or something, you just need a little extra light. You just like spit on the side of the wall and it just forms a It apparently also contains a sedative. His dwarf rock polish is used to melt glass and metal. And that's a running joke in the series. Apparently, is that he smells horrible. So, Mulch Diggums, Tyler. I gotta give it up for my boy, Mulch Diggums.
Mad props to Mulch Diggums.
Oh yeah,
I mean, living in that Artemis Fowl universe. I mean,
yep.
I mean, what's more foul than a dwarf's butthole, right, guys? High five.
I think that's like, that might be a quote from the series. I'm not sure, but depending on it. Yeah.
This is quite Artemis Fowl. He just rips one.
What do you think about that?
Classic
Classic
dwarf characteristics, I gotta say.
Yeah, sorry, real quick. The visual of him tunneling underground using his unhinged jaw at high speeds is sort of disturbing, but I don't know if that's like a typical dwarf power, so to speak, in the fictional...
you think all dwarves could do that?
No, I mean not. Like there are certain, like a mythological attribute, like the vampires and a silver or a stake through the heart kind of thing. I don't know if that was a generic fantasy application of a power for dwarves, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't come across that. More like Artemis Jowl.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that works.
That's a good one, right?
I'll allow it.
Hey, listen, the dwarves can smith chainmail armor. We can weld puns, right?
Oh yeah, I like it.
My number 2, Ben, is a yellow dwarf star, and I'm talking about our sun, bitch.
Oh wow,
a yellow dwarf.
Curveball.
Yeah, it's a yellow dwarf star. It's actually, the sun is actually white, but we see it as yellow, so we call it a yellow dwarf star. And little known fact, or a lot known fact, who knows? Yellow dwarfs, like our sun, outshine 90% of the stars in the Milky Way, which are largely just dimmer orange dwarfs, red dwarfs, and white dwarfs. The last being a stellar remnant, which I guess white dwarfs are about to go out or something like that, or they used to be stars, and we're just now seeing what's left of them. So some interesting stuff there. I mean, Ben, we wouldn't even be here without that great guy, the sun, up there.
That is true.
I believe he ran for president in one of our episodes. We said that the son, who, of course, made famous by the cover of the Raisin Bran box, he shovels the 2 scoops of raisins for you in each of those boxes. So the son, I think, was going up against Captain Crunch or something along those lines. And
that sounds right. Yeah, presidential hopefuls. I remember that episode.
Yeah, cereal mascots that should run for president. Yeah. was a very, very underrated episode. No one listened to that one.
What a great podcast we have.
We posted it in the cereal subreddit, which probably exists, and not one visitor to the cereal subreddit was interested in any of those mascots running for president. Like, you couldn't. You took the time to subscribe to the cereal subreddit. Like, let's take some time to click play on this baby.
Tyler, I gotta say that may be our most niche episode of all time. That's pretty. That is laser focused on people who would be interested in that.
I suppose I liked my Venn diagram that did not overlap at all, where one circle was serial fans and another one was politics. No overlap.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the Sun's, he's up there. He's shining it down. Tons of songs, tons of art, tons of movies made about the Sun. I think a lot of space-based travel deals with the Sun. Even though they're going to the moon, they have the Sun there. I mean, it comes up, it comes down every day like clockwork. I mean, clocks base their major function around the behavior of the Sun.
True.
So as a dwarf, right, he should be one of the most important dwarves that we're talking about right now.
I think so, yeah. That I'm really actually looking forward to seeing what your number one is, because I can't imagine one that's more impressive than our actual Sun. But
it's another Tolkien dwarf. Don't get your high hopes up.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, the Sun. Give it up to the Sun every once in a while, guys. Let's keep that planet clean. Earth Day.
Great choice.
Ben, number one.
My number one. I'm not sure how to pronounce this first name. Clangeddon, I think it is. Clangeddon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Clangeddon Silverbeard. That
Fantastic
is
dwarf.
Another dwarf deity of battle in the Dungeons and Dragons universe.
Can we first of all, can we just do another episode of just dwarf names?
We really should.
From Dungeons and Dragons, because that sounds like a cornucopia of entertainment.
Yeah, Duke Marin, Brightmantle, and Clangeddon Silverbeard. I gotta tell you,
Silverbeard
are going hand in hand, fighting through the battle of the Million Kingdoms or whatever.
You gotta
they
say
fight.
axe and axe.
Oh yeah, their axes are locked as they just Red Rover the shit out of the universe.
They can't go hand in hand because they're too busy holding axes.
Yeah. So this guy's nicknames, Tyler: the Father of Battle, Lord of the Twin Axes, the Giant Killer, the Goblin Bane, the Rock of Battle, and the Worm Slayer. But the O in worm is actually a Y.
Oh wow,
that is pretty
something is glowing of growing.
Yes, pretty metal. I know you would appreciate that. He is a craggy, middle-aged, bald, silver-bearded dwarf in chainmail, usually armed with a pair of battle axes, appears powerful, but he's always smiling. He's always got a smile on his face.
Yeah.
He knows he's about to wreck you, and he is happy about it. He
is destroying goblins.
Yeah, he is the intermediate deity of the lawful good alignment with the domains of good, law, strength, war, and dwarfism itself. He is the lord over all of these things.
He's capital T, the dwarf.
Basically, yeah, it sounds like it. He was first detailed in an article called The Dwarven Point of View that came out in 1982. So a relatively newly published dwarf who is ancient, of course, as most dwarves are,
of course,
in their fictional universes. Looks like he's a member of the Dwarven Pantheon. I'm trying to come up with anything else.
That sounds like he's high up there.
It's interesting, yeah.
Now, when I play, eventually I am going to play a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Is there a way to get him in my party? Because I'm pretty sure I could just win every adventure with him in my side.
That's a great question for somebody who has actually played, and that would not be me. I'm not sure if you can recruit dwarf deities into your individual games. I feel like there would probably be some sort of restrictions against that. Otherwise, it would just turn into a Titan on Titan battle. Every single game across the world would just be chaos of the highest order.
It would just be like this, Ben. It would be like my character Dirk Bane Traherne prays to the god Silverbeard to join his party. It failed.
Yeah.
Just keep rolling every time the dungeon master's like, fuck you, Traherne, you can't call on the dwarf god every single time something happens.
And then he eats the known universe. So, it looks like I win, guys.
It just excellent.
Yep. Clangeddon.
Man, fucking, you beat me again. My number one's just Durin the Third from Tolkien's Legendarium.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite dwarves in Tolkien's mythology. Ben, he's the one that forged a friendship with the elves. For a long time, it was elves no likey the dwarves. When the dwarves no likey the elves. Even Tolkien's writing in the Silmarillion is very dwarf bias. Like the dwarves are seen as like angry gentlemen or angry gentle dwarfs. And because the Silmarillion is written by the elves, so they frame the dwarfs as kind of bitter rivals.
Oh, that's interesting.
But Durin the Third, he was a dwarf king of Khazad-dûm during the Second Age, I want to say.
Now, Khazad-dûm, where is that located?
That is the Mines of Moria.
Okay, I knew I recognized that name from somewhere.
He was actually given the first of the 7 dwarf rings by Celebrimbor, one of your favorite elves, Ben.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
And not long after the War of Sauron and the Elves, which was that took place in the Second Age, and the dwarves had to close the doors, and so Moria, or the Dark Kingdom, was cut off from everybody. And then, of course, in the Third Age, we return to the Mines of Moria and find that they're all dead. So yes. I think Durin might be one of Balin.
Those bodies?
Balin was Gimli's like cousin, uncle, or whatever. He was crying. Crying about his coffin. I think that was Balin. But yes. Same thing, same line of history, I guess, all in that place. Mm-hmm. But man, they dug too deep, Ben. Those dwarves dug too deep, and they unlocked one of Morgoth's dreaded. Why am I forgetting the name already? The Balrog.
Oh, the Balrog, yeah. That
has to fight Gandalf the Grey and. Oh no, he does fight only Gandalf the Grey, but they die in a Superman Doomsday-esque battle. Yes. And Gandalf the Grey dies, but then comes back as Gandalf the White. Spoilers for The Two Towers, in case you were wondering. I remember seeing that with my parents, and my mom was like, "Oh man, that's too bad Gandalf died." I was like, "Mom, come on, he comes back." He comes back in The Two Towers, and she's like, "Oh, okay, well that's good."
You just ruined it for your mom.
Yeah, she did. She just took me to the movie because I really liked Tolkien. So thank you to the Rents for that.
Yep.
I think she took me to Two Towers as well, so maybe she was like legit interested in the outcome. Yeah, she wanted to see what happened to Gandalf. But props to my mom.
A big Sir Ian McKellen fan.
Yeah.
Your mom.
And another big prop to Durin the Third, taking one of those rings. Ben, as we know from our time in Middle-earth, and of course the Tolkien Month series of episodes, those rings didn't make the dwarves obey Sauron. They just really wanted to dig for more gold. That's basically all the rings did for the dwarves.
Yes.
The elves were not affected, but the men fell hard for Sauron.
Yeah.
And became the Nazgul.
A sad legacy, I think.
Oof. Too sad. But then, of course, there was the One Ring, too. Anyway, enough about that. Ben, we've crunched the numbers. Any thoughts on Durin the Third?
My favorite era of his life is when he teamed up with his twin brother, also named Durin, mm-hmm. and it became a 1980s pop band, rock band. Yeah.
I have some of their hits on my computer.
Hungry Like the Wolf, I believe, one of their...
Hungry Like the Grey Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, Hungry Like the Dire Wolf.
Sure, yeah. A View to a Kill, that's one. I'm sure
a View to a Kilt?
Oh, nicely done. Yeah, that's great.
Hungry Like the Dire Wolf. Well, anyway, listeners, if you have your own interpretation of a Duran Duran song or a Duran Duran song, send us an email, 5castpodcast@gmail.com. I really thought we could have done that off the top of our heads. But
let's just quit while we're ahead.
It is tough to improvise. We want to thank the folks over at UCB Theater for helping us think that we could do that. But of course, we found out very quickly that is why they get paid the big bucks.
Yes, those thousands of dollars I spent in classes have not proven fruitful. So,
if you're interested in even more 5cast discussion, you can also connect with us on Twitter, iTunes, SoundCloud. Ben, if listeners wanted to, I don't know, shoot you a message or maybe tell you some more Durin songs,
yep.
Where could they find you in cyberspace?
You can track me down on Twitter, twitter.com/BenPairs. You can listen to old episodes of the podcast that Tyler and I used to do called the Not Just New Movies podcast at njnmpodcast.blogspot.com.
Nori Nary World. Nori Nary World would be another version of a Durin song.
I see. I'm good with that one, yeah.
Noritorious.
Yeah, that'll work.
That works better. What did I say? A View to a Kilt?
Yep, that's a great one. I
Yeah.
think we end on that.
There we go.
Before we just make another disappointing pun.
Yeah. You can, of course, send me all kinds of puns on Twitter at Alan. And that's Alan Treherne, folks.
At Alan, the intro horn section of the Indiana Jones theme song. And yeah, that's how you can find me.
And until next week, Ben, I'm going to have to ask you to take 5. Bye-bye, buddy.
Take 5.